Echoes of Infidelity. Chapter 1. The Revelation. John and Emily had been married for 7 years, living what John thought was a picture-perfect life in their cosy suburban home. They had a 4-year-old son, Timmy, who was the light of their lives. John worked as a software engineer while Emily was a stay-at-home mum, dedicating her time to raising Timmy. It was a Saturday evening when John's world came crashing down. Emily had been acting distant for a few months, and John couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That evening, after Timmy was put to bed, Emily sat John down in the living room. "John, there's something I need to tell you," Emily said, her voice trembling. "What is it, Em?" John asked, his heart racing. I had an affair," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. John felt like the ground had been pulled from under him. He stared at Emily, unable to comprehend what she had just said. "Why, Emily, why?" he finally managed to ask. "It happened during my pregnancy with Timmy. I was so lonely, John. You were always working late, and I felt so isolated. It was a mistake, and I regret it every day," she sobbed. John felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness. "Who was it?" he asked through gritted teeth. "It was David, our neighbour," Emily admitted, her voice barely a whisper. John's mind raced. David, the friendly neighbour, who always waved at him and offered to help with yard work. John's blood boiled with rage and hurt. The betrayal cut deep, made worse by the fact that it happened during such a vulnerable time in their lives. Chapter 2. The Decision. John spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process the betrayal. He couldn't look at Emily without feeling a surge of anger. He considered divorce, but the thought of Timmy growing up in a broken home was too painful. He needed to find a way to cope, to move on, but the wound was too fresh. One night, as John lay awake, an idea began to form in his mind. It was dark and twisted, but the more he thought about it, the more it seemed like the perfect way to even the score. If she can cheat and justify it, why can't I, he thought. John rationalised that Emily's infidelity had shattered the trust in their marriage, and he convinced himself that he deserved some kind of retribution. The idea took root, growing stronger with each passing day. Chapter 3. The Revenge. John started paying more attention to his colleague, Sarah. She was beautiful, smart, and had always been friendly towards him. Over the next few weeks, John and Sarah grew closer. He started staying late at work, not to finish projects, but to spend time with her. Sarah, a recent divorcee, was unaware of John's motives. She saw him as a kind and considerate man, someone who understood her pain. Their shared lunches turned into late-night dinners, and before long John found himself in Sarah's arms. It didn't take long for their relationship to turn physical. John felt a strange sense of satisfaction as he cheated on Emily, thinking it was the perfect way to balance the scales. He was careful to hide the affair from Emily, savouring the irony of living a double life. The thrill of the affair and the sense of control it gave him became addictive. Yet beneath the surface, guilt gnawed at him, and he found himself torn between the euphoria of revenge and the reality of his actions. Chapter 4. The Unravelling. Months passed, and John's affair with Sarah continued. Emily noticed the change in John's behaviour and confronted him one evening. "John, you've been distant. Is there something going on?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. John decided it was time to reveal his secret. "Yes, Emily, there is something going on. I've been having an affair," he said coldly. Emily's face went pale. "How could you, John? After everything we've been through." John's anger bubbled to the surface. "How could I? How could you, Emily? You cheated on me while you were pregnant with our child. Consider this my way of evening the score." Emily broke down in tears. "I'm so sorry, John. I made a terrible mistake, but I thought we were working through it." John shook his head. "There's no working through this, Emily. We're done." Emily moved out, taking Timmy with her for the time being. John was left alone in the house that once felt like a home, now cold and empty. Chapter 5. The Fallout. John filed for divorce the next day. The proceedings were messy and painful, but John felt a sense of grim satisfaction as he signed the final papers. Emily moved out and they agreed on joint custody of Timmy. As the months went by, John found solace in his relationship with Sarah. But the guilt of what he had done to his family gnawed at him. He realised that revenge had only brought more pain and destruction into his life. One evening, as John tucked Timmy into bed, his son looked up at him with innocent eyes. "Daddy, why doesn't Mummy live with us anymore?" John's heart ached as he struggled to find the right words. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Timmy, but we both love you very much and that will never change." As John walked out of Timmy's room, he knew he had a long road ahead to heal the wounds of the past. Revenge had given him temporary satisfaction, but it had also left him with a lifetime of regret. Chapter 6. The Journey to Forgiveness. John's relationship with Sarah began to strain under the weight of his guilt and the complexity of his emotions. Sarah, sensing his inner turmoil, tried to be supportive, but she too was dealing with her own issues. One evening, Sarah confronted John. "John, I care about you, but I can't help but feel like you're not really here with me. What's going on?" John sighed, feeling the weight of his actions pressing down on him. "I thought this would make me feel better, but it hasn't. I'm sorry, Sarah. I need to sort out my life." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. "I understand, John. I hope you find the peace you're looking for." John ended his relationship with Sarah and focused on rebuilding his life. He started seeing a therapist, hoping to make sense of his emotions and find a path forward. His therapist, Dr. Reynolds, helped him explore the deeper issues that had led him down the path of revenge. "John, it's important to understand that while Emily's actions hurt you deeply, your response only compounded the pain," Dr. Reynolds said during one session. "True healing comes from understanding and forgiveness, both for yourself and for Emily." John began to see the truth in those words. He started to let go of his anger and resentment, replacing them with a desire to heal and move forward. He reached out to Emily, hoping to mend the broken pieces of their relationship, not as a couple, but as co-parents. Chapter 7. A New Beginning. John and Emily sat down together for the first time in months, this time with a mediator to help them navigate their conversation. "Emily, I'm sorry for the way I reacted. I was hurt and angry, and I made things worse," John admitted. Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry too, John. I never meant to hurt you. I made a terrible mistake, and I've regretted it every day since." They talked for hours, airing their grievances and expressing their regrets. It was a painful conversation, but it was also cathartic. By the end, they both felt a sense of relief and a glimmer of hope. They agreed to focus on co-parenting Timmy and building a respectful relationship. It wasn't easy, and there were many challenges along the way, but they were committed to making it work for the sake of their son. Epilogue. The lesson learned. Years passed, and John and Emily found a new rhythm as co-parents. They both moved on to new relationships, but the lessons they learned from their experience stayed with them. John often reflected on the dark period of his life and the choices he made. He realised that revenge had only brought more pain and suffering. Through therapy and self-reflection, he learned the importance of forgiveness, understanding, and communication. As he watched Timmy grow up, John felt a deep sense of gratitude for the lessons learned and the opportunity to build a better future. He hoped that his story would serve as a reminder to others that true healing comes from within and that forgiveness is the key to moving forward. Cycles of betrayal. John and Emily's seemingly perfect marriage shatters when Emily confesses to an affair during her pregnancy. Struggling with betrayal and anger, John decides to seek revenge by embarking on an affair of his own. But as the consequences of his actions unravel, John finds himself trapped in a cycle of pain and regret. Through the turmoil, he learns that true healing comes from forgiveness and understanding, not from vengeance. Cycles of Betrayal is a compelling tale of love, betrayal, and the difficult path to redemption.